Hi, Gio.
Hey, Tom, how are you? These allergies are unbelievable. Shocking that something like pollen can just take you right for the loop.
6.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the City of Binghamton City Council business meeting for Wednesday, April 6th, 2022. Please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Before we do roll call, as we've done in the past, for you looking in from your right to left, we have Councilwoman Aviva Friedman, Councilwoman Sophia Rezzanetti, Phil Strawn, and our corporate counsel, Brian Seacrest, at the table down here. Janine, could you roll call for us, please?
Councilman Scringy,
Present.
Councilwoman Rezzanetti,
Present.
Councilwoman Riley. She looks like she is absent so far. Councilwoman Friedman,
Present.
Councilman Burns,
Present.
Councilman Scanlon,
Present.
and President Strawn.
Present.
Okay, that is 6 here, 1 absent. Riley.
Okay, thank you. Could we have the approval of minutes for March 23, 2022? Councilwoman Rezzanetti.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion to have the minutes approved for March 23, 2022 business meeting.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you for that. Okay, we do not have a public hearing tonight, so we will move right into our public comment section. Janine, will you tell everyone how they can participate tonight in the public comment, please?
If you'd like to participate in our public comment tonight, please use the raise hand button and leave it raised, and then we will move you to speak, and you'll have 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Our first speaker is Tina Chronopoulos.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, super. Hi, my name is Tina Chronopoulos. I live on Laurel Avenue, which happens to be in the district of Councilperson Sophia Rezzanetti. As usual, a bunch of things that I'd like to address tonight. I noticed that there are some folks who are sitting around the table, and I noticed some folks who are on camera, others I don't see. I'm afraid I was a little late, so I'm not actually sure who's in the meeting or not. I'm hoping very much that any council members who are attending remotely will put their camera on so their constituents can see them. And I salute those of you who I guess have the confidence to do so. So something that I brought up last time I spoke was the fact that the executive to the mayor, Megan Hyman, I believe, still has herself listed as the deputy mayor on her LinkedIn page. And as I previously said, I think that's inappropriate. This, I think, was a bad habit that was introduced by the mayor, who's actually in place, who constantly referred to himself as deputy mayor. I hope that city council will do something about this, because I don't think it is appropriate to, list yourself as something that you are not, even if it is linked in and not controlled by the city. I could be going around calling myself, I don't know, assistant dean of whatever, and that wouldn't actually be factually correct. And I would very much hope that the people who are working with me and or for me would call me out on that. Another thing that I would like to talk about is what's going on at the sewage treatment plant. You might recall that in December 2020, we had a very strange, orchestrated, it seems, questioning of the superintendent at the plant, primarily by those of you who go by the name of quote unquote Republican, and you seem to express great interest at what goes on at the plant. And then last year in the spring, under the leadership of Sophia Reseniti, who was then the council president, there were all sorts of machinations that were taking place to put in some kind of audit. Many of you were telling us in great detail how you are interested in what goes on at the plant, how you are invested, how you believe the staff who work there. And so I'm finding it very interesting that, as far as I can tell, I haven't seen anyone from City Council talk about what's going on at the plant. You may know that earlier this year, there was a valve that somehow misfunctioned. I'm really interested to know, can somebody tell us who manufactured that particular part and who installed it and why did it fail? What's happening at the plant seems to be sort of reprising what's happened at the past, namely that costs for the quote unquote renovation that took place kept rising, and now the costs for the cleanup and the repair keep rising and rising and rising. And as you know, I and others in the community have talked about, it is really problematic. And I'm sure you can see this playing out in reality, that we have a board that is appointed by politicians. So politicians are going to be appointing mostly their cronies and their friends, some of whom have absolutely no clue what happens in a sewage treatment plant, who then, who are then on that board and who are not working with and for the staff, but who are probably machinating in the background for the benefit of themselves and the sort of contractors and people who are in the background. So I'm really sort of dismayed to see that this is happening. Another thing that I thought I might mention is what's going on with housing in Binghamton. Last year, I believe it was in...
You have 1 minute.
Thank you for reminding me. It was in the fall that Mayor Graham was talking about, or were then candidate, now mayor, was talking about how it would be good to have code violations be searchable online. I hope that you will move with alacrity, with swiftness, in other words, to make such a database viewable for ordinary people so that they can know what they're going to get into when they rent from most of the people in this town who are slumlords, who are charging exorbitant prices and are not keeping up their properties. Thank you for your time. Take good care.
We'll give it just another second, and then Councilwoman Friedman has a letter that was sent in to read into the record. We'll give it just another second for the online, and then as she reads it, if somebody else has their hand up, we'll give them a chance to do that after that. So give it another second, and then we'll have Councilwoman Friedman read the letter that was sent to the clerk earlier today. Okay, Councilwoman Freeman, why don't you go ahead and read the letter that was sent to the clerk's office earlier today for us? Thank you.
Okay. Dear City Council members, I am puzzled by the conversation regarding potential reforms to Binghamton code enforcement efforts to more equitably and effectively deal with substandard rental properties, vacant properties, and irresponsible property owners. In my professional capacity, I work with communities here in New York and across the nation in helping to design equitable solutions, including code enforcement practices to vacant, abandoned, and deteriorating properties. The first step any community must take is to better understand the scope, scale, and nature of the problem one is trying to solve. Do council members know how many vacant properties exist in the city? Do council members know how many zombie properties exist in the city? Do council members know how many tenants have called to complain of safety and health hazards in their rental units? Do council members know how many properties have been condemned as uninhabitable by Binghamton Code or rental properties vacated by orders of the Broome County Health Department because of lead hazards that have threatened the well-being of children? Do council members know where in the city these problem properties exist, where they are most prevalent? The second step is to better understand why current approaches are not working effectively to protect neighbors and neighborhoods from harms imposed by such problem properties. Do council members know how code is currently deploying staff time and resources to try to address each of the above categories of problem properties? Do council members know how the city spent more than $1 million in code enforcement grant funds over the last 5 years, which were designed specifically to help communities tackle problem properties more effectively and equitably, and what the outcomes were? Do council members know whether or not the vacant property registration program is working, or whether the city is effectively utilizing existing tools and state laws, such as Article 19A Abandonment Proceedings Law or the Zombie Property Inspection and Maintenance Law? Do council members know what the biggest challenges or barriers cited by the code department and law department are in trying to protect neighbors and neighborhoods from the harms imposed by each of these different types of problem properties? The third step is to identify which tools and policies the state laws allow or prohibit a municipality to utilize to achieve greater impact and more successful outcomes. As a home rule state, there are fortunately few limitations in New York, and overall, we have very good legal systems related to code enforcement, delinquent property tax enforcement, and land banking that allows forward-thinking communities to integrate many different strategies and interventions across these systems to achieve optimal effect. And some communities are doing outstanding and innovative work that have become national best practices. Finally, the fourth step is then to design new policies, partnerships, and programs tailored to the community's needs and priorities and allocate resources accordingly. And then commit to ongoing evaluation and adjustment. Again, there are great models right here in New York that have been incubated over the last few years, thanks largely to the unprecedented funding from the AG's office. That's why I'm puzzled by the council's approach. There is no meaningful open conversation with each other, the administration, and the community about the first and second steps. And there seems to be a rush to jump to potential solutions across a whole range of, quote, alleged problems. I can share from experience as the city's former housing director and longtime Southside homeowner that the biggest local challenges in need of better practices and policy solutions are substandard rental properties and vacant properties. For what it's worth, I walk my dog a few times a day in my neighborhood, and within a 10-minute walk from my house on Tremont Avenue, I have identified just in the last week approximately 24 properties that strongly indicate vacancy. The list is below. Also, the properties that always seem to be the most run down and poorly maintained are rental properties. It saddens and frustrates me to think of the living conditions inside many of these units and how they likely present real health and safety concerns to the tenants, many of them vulnerable and with few to no other housing options. Thus, the idea that council can meet once every 2 weeks for 2 or 3 times in order to come up with meaningful reforms to protect neighbors and neighborhoods from substandard rental properties, vacant properties, and irresponsible property owners is impractical and unrealistic. This is not a political statement. This is based on my 8 years of professional experience working with communities across the country day in and day out on similar challenges. As I mentioned in my letter and suggest again above, there are critical steps of information gathering and analysis, as well as open, inclusive conversations that must first be prioritized. And if the council and administration does them right, transparently, in partnership with the community and centering those most harmed by problem properties, then I promise the solutions ultimately identified and pursued will be equitable and effective. The process will take longer, but I can promise that there is no shortcut here if you genuinely want to pursue this important work. As always, please know that I remain available as a resource to the council and the administration should there be any interest. Sincerely, Tara Gonzalez, 17 Tremont Avenue. And then there's a list, likely vacant properties within a few blocks from my house. 3 Tremont, 19 Tremont, 1221 Vestal, 1274 Vestal, 2 Livingston, 6 Livingston, 24 Livingston, 19 Birch, 34 Mill, 36 Mill, 46 Mill, 45 Vine, 4 McNamara, 6 McNamara, 14 McNamara, 24 McNamara, 29 Mary, 78 Mary, 82 Mary, 83 Mary with a question mark, 88 Mary, 62 South Washington, 63 South Washington, and 20 Conklin.
Okay, thank you for reading that for us. We appreciate it. Janine, no other, still no hands up.
No more hands are raised.
What's that?
No more.
Okay, we will end our public comment section. Thank you for the caller and for the letter that was sent in. We appreciate it. At this time, we'll move on to our preferred agenda. Would anybody like anything pulled from the preferred agenda? Councilwoman Freeman, go ahead.
Thank you, President Strawn. I'd like to please pull introductory ordinance 22-62 and introductory ordinance 22-67, please.
Okay, we will pull those. Janine, do you want to read do you want to do it that way? Okay, just try to project just a tiny bit so we can at least hear. It's hard for us to hear you down here, but everybody else can probably hear you good. Okay, so we will go as adjusted. We will go through the preferred agenda, starting with the introductory ordinance 22-57.
First is introductory ordinance 22-57, considered in finance. An ordinance to update the city of Binghamton's chart of accounts to provide for a custodial trust fund and corresponding accounts per GASB announcement 84.
Okay, any questions or comments on introductory ordinance 22-57? Okay, go ahead.
Next is introductory ordinance 22-58, considered in finance. An ordinance to amend the charter and code of the city of Binghamton, part 1, chapter 5, subsection 5-7.g, designation of depositories, to add to Tioga State Bank NA as a company authorized to accept deposits of monies in an amount up to $40 million.
Any questions or comments on introductory ordinance 22-58? Okay, please proceed.
Next is introductory ordinance 22-59, considered in finance. An ordinance to account for additional grant funds received from New York State for the 7 Hawley Street parking garage.
Any questions or comments on introductory ordinance 22-59? Okay, please proceed.
Next is introductory ordinance 22-60, considered in planning. An ordinance to establish a parking reserve fund, 7 Hawley Street parking ramp debt service in the amount of $540,304.
Any questions or comments on introductory ordinance 22-60? Okay, please proceed.
Next is introductory ordinance 22-61, considered in finance. An ordinance to amend the 2022 capital fund budget to close bond lines that are no longer active.
Any questions or comments on introductory ordinance 22-61? Okay, please proceed.
Next is introductory ordinance 22-63, considered in finance. An ordinance to amend the 2022 IT capital budget to allocate ARPA funds for hardware, software upgrades, and improvements.
Any questions or comments on introductory ordinance 22-63? Okay, please proceed.
Next is introductory ordinance 22-64, considered in finance. An ordinance to amend the 2022 assessment budget to increase the annual salary of the assessor to $85,000.
Questions or comments on introductory ordinance 22-64? Okay, please proceed.
Next is introductory ordinance 22-65, considered in finance. An ordinance to amend the 2022 insurance fund budget to account for and replace 4 city vehicles damaged in an accident on State Street.
Any questions or comments on introductory ordinance 22-65? Okay, please proceed.
Next is introductory ordinance 22-66, considered in finance. An ordinance to amend the 2021 insurance fund budget for incurred loss for year end.
Questions or comments on introductory ordinance 22-66? Okay, please proceed.
Next is introductory ordinance 22-68, considered in finance. An ordinance to amend the 2022 law budget to increase funding for temporary services.
Any questions or comments on introductory ordinance 22-68? Okay, please proceed.
Next is introductory ordinance 22-69, considered in finance. An ordinance to amend the 2022 Binghamton Johnson City Joint Sewage Board budget to increase the insurance recovery revenue for ongoing rehabilitation work.
Any questions or comments on introductory ordinance 22-69? Please proceed.
Next is introductory resolution 22-27, considered in planning, a resolution authorizing the mayor to amend the agreement with Greater Opportunities for Broome and Shenango for the use of FY46 CDBG funds for capital projects.
Any questions or comments on introductory resolution 22-27? Please proceed.
Next is introductory resolution 22-28, considered in planning, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with the Binghamton Local Development Corporation for use of FY47 CDBG funds.
Any questions or comments on introductory resolution 22-28? Okay, please proceed.
Next is introductory resolution 22-29, considered in planning, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with the Binghamton Housing Authority to use of tenant-based rental assistance funds.
Any questions or comments on introductory resolution 22-29? Okay, please proceed.
Next is introductory resolution 22-30, considered in finance, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into supplemental agreement number 2 with Barton and LaJudas DPC for GIGP grant administration and construction phase services for the Deco District Streetscape Improvements Project.
Any questions or comments on introductory resolution 22-30? Okay, please proceed.
Next is introductory resolution 22-31, considered in planning, a resolution authorizing an amendment and extension of the lease and operating agreement for the Discovery Center.
Any questions or comments on introductory resolution 22-31? We have a motion to accept the preferred agenda as amended.
Motion to accept the agenda as amended.
Second.
Okay, Janine, could you do a roll call vote for us on the preferred agenda?
Councilman Scringy,
Aye.
Councilwoman Rezinetti,
Aye.
Councilwoman Riley is absent, Councilwoman Friedman,
Aye.
Councilman Burns,
Aye.
Councilman Scanlon,
Aye.
and Councilman Strawn.
Aye.
Right, that's 6 ayes, 1 absent. Riley.
Okay, thank you for that, Janine and everyone. We will now move to our non-preferred agenda. And first on the non-preferred agenda will be introductory ordinance 22-62, considered in finance. Councilman Scringy.
Thank you, Mr. President. I stand and ask for unanimous consideration of introductory ordinance 22-62, an ordinance to account for lost revenue of $964,943 per the American Rescue Plan Act guidelines.
Any questions or comments on introductory ordinance 22-62? Councilwoman Friedman, go ahead.
Thank you, President Strawn. I am
Mi-
gonna,
Mr. President,
Oh.
Mr. President, I apologize, my colleague, point of order. We need a second, Mr. President.
yes.
We have a second on introductory ordinance 22-62.
Second, this is Councilwoman Riley.
I was just going to say Councilwoman Riley is now present in the meeting. Thank you.
Sorry, Councilwoman Friedman.
No worries.
go-
I was thinking the same thing.
Go ahead.
Okay, so this is the second time that we have been asked to use American Rescue Plan Act funds for lost revenue, and yet I don't believe that we have heard an estimation of the actual amount of revenue that the city of Binghamton lost. And I know that this number was calculated based on an equation or a formula that came to us from the federal government. But the much of the first discussion that we had around this lost revenue money is not if we can, but if we should. Can we use ARPA an additional almost $1 million in lost revenue? Yes, we can do that. Should we do that? I would argue no. I think that there are more pressing needs for this money. And so far, some of it has been spent for things that are directly related to COVID relief, but really not much of this ARPA money that we have earmarked or allocated has really been directly related to providing relief to residents who are having trouble finding quality, low-cost housing, or who need maybe direct payments or anything else that I think, in my opinion, and in my constituents' opinion, is a better use of this money. So again, just because we can do it doesn't mean we should. And I don't believe that this is the most pressing use of this money. And it worries me to unencumber this money so that it can essentially be spent on anything, as you know, the next piece of legislation that we are voting on illustrates. So no, I don't believe that this is an appropriate use of this money. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on introductory ordinance 22-62?
Yes.
Councilman Burns, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I agree with my colleague, Councilmember Friedman. You know, we took $12 million out of the ARPA funds and put them into the lost revenue funds. And we never were shown where the revenue was lost. You know, we had everybody come down and speak to us about the new budget, and nobody said that, you know, they were short money from the year before, so much that, you know, that added up to $12 million. So I still don't understand where that comes from, except that there was an equation that said they could do it. I remember before we hired the outside party to use that equation, you know, we came up, I think we were $4 million short, $3 or $4 million, and then it went to 12, 7 of which went to Water Street, which I do like the Water Street project very much. But at any rate, I think that the ARPA funds are very limited and very specific of what they're for. And if we put the money into the lost revenue, then we can use it, even though it has to be approved by City Council. It can be used for whatever we want, really. So I think we've put enough money into the lost revenue fund. So I'd like to personally, well, I'm going to vote no, because I think the money should stay in ARPA. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Burns. Councilwoman Riley, go ahead.
Thank you, Council President, and thank you all for noticing I was a little tardy. My plane was late, but nevertheless, I again echo the sentiments of my colleagues. I've said this from day one. We have received a pot of money, and that's what we're acting like, a pot of money based upon the needs and the types of needs residents have in our city. We would not be eligible for the large sum that we've received if we had, if everyone's needs were met, I will say. Now, yes, there were some great initiatives launched. There was money allocated towards housing, towards our Broome County initiative, and some properties put on that we've allowed our residents to purchase, some great ideas. However, here we are again without the information we've requested, and we're going forward making large expenditures and then going back and justifying them. For example, now let me say this before I go into my example. I support the needs of the fire department in terms of the fire truck. However, when we talked about, again, it's a little bit different because there was some overlap of the money. This is actually CDBG. We said, how is it addressing the needs of the community for which that money was given to us? And we were told because it's in the neighborhood, they could address fires more swiftly. That is not a direct improvement on the conditions our residents are currently experiencing. So I, like my colleagues, oppose moving money over to the general fund, the lost revenue fund, because the equation allows it. That's the only reason we're doing it. If we were to have another robust conversation with our residents, prioritizing the needs and how we're going to allocate the remaining ARPA funds, that would help us. It would also help us to continuously see a running tally of what has been allocated and what is in the works to be brought to City Council hopefully prior to a press release, so that we can defend the actions and see that we are actively responding to the needs of our constituents. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on introductory ordinance 22-62?
Call the question, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Scaringi. Janine, could you do a roll call for us, please?
Councilman Scaringi,
Aye.
Councilwoman Rezinetti, Councilwoman Riley,
Nay.
Councilwoman Friedman,
Nay.
Councilman Burns,
Nay.
Councilman Scanlon,
Aye.
and President Strawn.
Aye.
All right, that's 4 ayes, 3 nays, Riley, Friedman, Burns.
Okay, thank you. We will now go on to introductory ordinance 22-67, considered in finance. Councilman Scaringi.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I apologize. What was that RL number again?
Introductory ordinance 22-67.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
My apologies to everyone for my voice. My allergies really have kicked in badly over the last 24 hours, and it's been very difficult to speak. I stand and ask for unanimous consideration of introductory ordinance 22-67, an ordinance to amend the 2022 budget to purchase and equip 10 police vehicles with lost revenue funds.
Any questions or comments on introductory ordinance 22-67? Councilwoman Friedman, go ahead. Go.
Again, point of order. We need a second, Mr. President.
We did. Councilwoman Rezinetti did second it. Sorry.
My apologies. I couldn't hear. Thank you.
Okay. Councilwoman Friedman, go ahead with your question or comment.
Thank you, President Strong. Can people on Zoom hear me? Yes. Okay. Up to this point, we have been talking in abstract about ARPA funds being moved into the general fund and being spent on whatever we want. And we have been mentioning how that's an undesirable thing. I say me and some of my colleagues. And here is a perfect example of COVID relief money being spent on something that is totally unrelated to COVID relief. That's one reason why I don't support this legislation. The second reason why I don't support this legislation is that so in the memo that we were provided, giving background information and context as to why the Chief Zukoski was asking for this. So this is a memo that came from Captain Bidwell that says a patrol car is ... the way we provide a visible presence in high crime areas. And so I asked at the work session if there was data to support that police presence or visibility of patrol cars was an effective deterrent that would reduce crime. And the chief said, yes, there is data, but he wasn't able to provide that. So I did a little bit of research to see if I could find the study that posited that visible police cars are an effective deterrent for crime. And I was able to find one article that was published in the Police Journal. And I'm gonna take an excerpt from the abstract. So it says a study of the effects of visibility of patrols were more effective deterrents, while high/low visibility patrols resulted in more apprehensions. Several studies have found that the use of aggressive patrol techniques, such as vehicle stops and stakeouts, produce high arrest rates and low crime rates. In other studies, factors which have been found to contribute to enhanced police effectiveness include close cooperation with the community, the use of team policing, and increased night patrols. Overall, this survey suggests that it is far more important how police are used than how many there are. Increased police strength alone does not make a difference. Rather, many other factors must be considered if police presence is going to impact on crime rates. So this was the only academic resource I could find. This was published in 1985. So dare I say it's a little bit outdated. Maybe there are more recent studies that could suggest that increased police presence effectively deters crime. However, I also believe that it's a cause and effect, right? If police are more present in certain areas, they're going to have higher arrest rates. So what is a high crime area? I can't help but wonder, are high crime areas caused by more police being there? If we had more police in, let's say, wealthier areas or areas that have more resources, I wonder if we wouldn't have higher arrest rates there. I mean, we know that one of the most impactful factors that contribute to crime is access to resources. So high crime area, it's like it's a cycle. A high crime area tends to have lower resources. People are desperate, their needs are not being met, so they resort to crime. Then we have police officers essentially profiling these areas and arresting people, therefore leading to the high crime rates. So I don't believe that this is an effective way to increase community safety. And I certainly don't support using COVID relief money in order to purchase these 10 police vehicles. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on introductory ordinance 22-67?
Seeing none, I'll call the question, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman Scringy. Janine, could you do a roll call for us on introductory ordinance 22-67?
Councilman Scringy,
Aye.
Councilwoman Resonetti,
Aye.
Councilwoman Riley,
Nay.
Councilwoman Friedman,
Nay.
Councilman Burns,
Aye.
Councilman Scanlon,
Aye.
and President Strawn.
Aye.
All right, that's 5 ayes, 2 nays, Riley, Friedman.
Okay, thank you, everyone. We will now proceed to our communication from our body here. This is our seventh business meeting of the year, believe it or not. And with me going last, that brings us back to District 1 and Councilman Scaringi.
Thank you, Mr. President. Forgive me, just with my voice, I'm going to pass on this reporting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We will now go to Council District 2 and Councilwoman Resonetti.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just want to take a quick minute to express my deepest condolences to the O'Day family. As we know, Pat O'Day passed away a few days ago. He was one of the longest serving members of Binghamton Civil Service Commission. He served through 4 different mayoral administrations. So that would be, I guess, Fucci and Ryan and David and now Cram. He was really a true public servant, and we will all miss him. And again, my sincerest condolences to the family. I will be scheduling a neighborhood cleanup gathering. It's that time of year. These are things we love to do, and actually had some constituents reaching out asking when we're going to do them. So we're looking at possibly Saturday, the 16th. Stay tuned, and please join us if you can. And lastly, for those who celebrate next weekend, have a wonderful Easter and take good care. Stay safe.
Thank you. We will now go to Council District 3 and Councilwoman Riley.
Thank you, Council President. I'll be brief. Again, similar to what Councilwoman Resonetti just said, we're approaching the spring break, Easter holiday. So I want everyone to be safe and enjoy this time, at least for those that are in the Binghamton City School District, enjoy this time away, refresh and renew. I also am very excited. My CDBG representative is with her team tonight, working on the budget that we will be hearing about very soon. So she is trying to plan. She and I will be working on a community presentation to discuss what actually is happening with the CDAC and how some of those needs can be prioritized. I received, again, several emails about our last expenditure, particularly since we moved money that was held for a youth center to another expense that was not previously discussed, nor was it placed in our budget. As you guys remember, we had some things we wanted to purchase, say COVID money came through, we had it in our budget. Nevertheless, so that meeting will be forthcoming, and that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now go to Council District 4 and Councilwoman Friedman.
Thank you, Council President Strawn. There are a lot of religious holidays in this season. So Easter, like Councilwoman Resonetti mentioned. Also, Passover is coming up. So Pesach Sameach to any Jewish people who are celebrating. And it's also Ramadan as well. So Ramadan Mubarak for any people who are celebrating Ramadan. There is a North Side Assembly meeting tomorrow, Thursday at 6 o'clock at oh my gosh, what is the name of the church? I know the church. I know how to get there. It's on Shenango Street, on the north side. Oh my gosh. Centenary Shenango Street Church. That's what it's called. Okay. Took me a second to get it there. So there's a North Side Assembly meeting for anyone who lives on the north side who wants to get involved with community affairs, find out what's going on, meet some neighbors. I encourage you to come to that. And also in some other exciting North Side news, Greater Good Grocery is now open until 7 p.m. on weeknights. It used to be 6 p.m. and people who work until 5 o'clock, it was a little bit difficult sometimes to get there on time. So I'm excited to expand access to fresh and sometimes specialty grocery items on the north side. And I think that is it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We now go to Council District 5 and Councilman Burns.
Thank you. I'm have a little bit of a cold myself, so I don't have much to say. The Southside Neighborhood Assembly, we are planning a cleanup at the end of this month or the beginning of next. We haven't set the date. In 2 weeks, I will be able to give that to you. And that's about all I got. Thanks.
Thank you. I will now go to Council District 7 and Councilman Scanlon.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no comment tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Very briefly, I just want to concur with my colleague, Councilwoman Rezinetti. Just condolences to the O'Day family. I know Mr. O'Day was a stalwart down here at City Hall. I know he's going to be missed as part of the City Hall family. I just got to know him over the last couple of years, and just very saddened that I didn't get to know him even better. I know he's been a Binghamtonian his whole life, and Civil Service Commission veteran, local businessman, et cetera, et cetera. So just want to once again send my condolences to his family. Was able to go to the wake earlier today. Seemed very well attended, and to show support for him and his family. So once again, our heart goes out to his family and the whole City Hall family down here that he will be missed greatly. Just very briefly, Councilman Burns just mentioned cleanup coming up. We did, him and I did meet with the Southside Neighborhood Assembly last week. We had a very good meeting with them. So I would encourage any across the city, whether it's an official cleanup or not, as spring comes, to clean up your house and 2 others. Just get out there, and if something's out there, pick it up. It doesn't take that long. And we try to some areas are prone to this, but the winter is always tough with trash being out there and things like that. So we all work together and make the job a little bit easier to clean up our beautiful city. That would be great. With that, I will take a motion to adjourn our meeting tonight.
So moved.
Second.
We're adjourned. Good night, everyone. Happy Easter. Take